The rain hits the Manhattan sidewalk like it has somewhere to be. It comes down hard and sideways, slicing through the gap between two buildings on West 57th, turning the alley into a river of cold black water and reflected neon. A red light bleeds across the wet pavement. A yellow taxi leans on its horn somewhere on the main street and then goes quiet. The city does not stop. It never stops. But in this narrow throat of an alley, between a shuttered flower shop and the steel back door of a restaurant that smells like garlic and money, something has already gone wrong. Teo Beaumont stands with his back against the brick wall. He is soaked through. His white buttoned-down shirt clings to his collarbone, his silver hair plastered flat across his forehead, rain running in lines down the side of his face like the building itself is crying for him. He is 25 years old and he looks, in this exact moment, like someone who has been running for a very long time and has just hit a wall he did not see coming. His hands are pressed flat against the brick behind him, his knuckles are white. And in front of him stands Nathan Lancel. Nathan does not look like a man who has ever been rained on. He stands at the mouth of the alley in a black Brioni coat that costs more than most people's rent, completely still, the rain somehow choosing to fall around him rather than on him. He is 6 feet 3 inches of composed, cold, ruthless alpha energy, and his dark eyes are locked on Teo's face with the particular focus of a man who has just recognized something he was not expecting to see. He does not speak. Teo speaks first. His voice is barely above the sound of the rain. Please, the word cracks on the way out. He clears his throat and tries again. Please, just pretend you know me. The silence that follows lasts exactly 4 seconds. Teo counts them. He has gotten very good at counting silences when his heart is trying to climb out of his chest. Nathan's jaw shifts. His eyes drop to the left side of Teo's collar, then rise back to his face. Something unreadable moves through his expression and settles back into nothing. He does not answer. And then Teo hears it, the sound of 2 sets of footsteps on wet pavement, unhurried, measured, coming from the street behind Nathan. Not the sound of strangers walking past. The sound of people who have chosen, deliberately, to stop. Teo's eyes move past Nathan's shoulder. 2 men stand at the alley entrance. They are built like Nathan. They carry themselves like Nathan. Same height, same stillness, same dark coats. The one on the left has his hands in his pockets and his eyes already on Teo, watching him with the flat, assessing calm of someone who has long ago stopped being surprised by anything. The one on the right has a phone in his hand, but he is not looking at it. He is looking at Teo too. 3 of them, all identical, all watching. Teo's back presses harder into the brick. He already knows who they are. Everyone in certain circles of New York knows who the Lancel triplets are. Nathan, Dorian and Zeke Lancel. 3rd-generation Mafia, 1st-generation billionaires, the kind of men whose names people say quietly and whose faces appear in Forbes and in federal case files in the same calendar year. But knowing their names and standing in front of all 3 of them in a dark alley while soaked to the bone are 2 experiences that share no DNA. His chest is tight, his breath is shallow, his fingers are cold. And still under all of it, his mind is doing what it always does, calculating, measuring, looking for the door. Nathan takes 1 step forward, just 1. The distance between them goes from 8 feet to 6, and the change in air pressure is immediate and physical, the way it always is with a dominant alpha, the way it has always been specifically with Nathan, even 5 years ago when Teo was 20 and did not yet know what careful felt like. You want me to pretend, Nathan says, his voice is low, it carries even under the rain, to know you. It is not a question, it is a restatement, precise, deliberate, the voice of a man who repeats things back not because he missed them, but because he wants you to hear what you just said. Teo lifts his chin, it takes effort. There's a man, he says, keeping his voice even through sheer will, who has been following me for 3 blocks, grey coat. He stopped at the corner when he saw you. I need him to believe I'm not alone. Nathan looks at him for a long moment. Then, without turning around, he says 1 word over his shoulder. 1 word, quiet and flat. The 2 brothers at the alley entrance move without being asked twice. They separate, each going a different direction, and within 30 seconds Teo hears the sound of footsteps, faster footsteps, retreating footsteps, somewhere on the wet street beyond. Nathan turns back to Teo. The distance between them is now 4 feet, and the rain keeps falling and Nathan Lancel is looking at him, the way someone looks at a locked door they are quite certain they have seen before. Hi viewers, says the narrator, stepping into the story's current like a hand on your shoulder. Tell me something if you had spent 5 years building a life so carefully that nothing and no one could take it apart, and then in one rainy second the one person who could unravel all of it was standing 4 feet in front of you, what would you do? Would you run, or would you finally stand still? Drop your answer in the comments, I need to know. Because here is what Nathan does not know. Here is what none of the three Lancel brothers standing in this alley know, on this particular Tuesday night in October, with the rain coming down and the red neon bleeding across the wet pavement. Teo Beaumont has 2 sons. They are 4 years old. They have silver hair like their father and dark eyes that, in certain light, catch something that has no business being on an Omega's children. They are home right now, 8 blocks away, in a brownstone apartment on West 49th that Teo owns outright, looked after by a woman named Claudette who has worked for Teo for 2 years and who knows, because Teo told her the first week, that if he is ever more than 40 minutes late without texting, she is to take the boys and go to the address written in the red envelope in the kitchen drawer. The red envelope has been in that drawer for 3 years. Teo has updated the address in it twice. He has been careful. He has been so careful. Every decision layered over every other decision, every precaution sitting on top of every other precaution, a structure built quietly over 5 years, with the patience of someone who understood from the beginning that careless people do not survive proximity to the Lancel name. And then tonight he took a different route home because it was raining and he did not want to wait for the crosstown bus. And the man in the grey coat started following him 2 blocks from the brownstone, too close to home, dangerously close, the kind of close that means someone already knows more than Teo can afford. And Teo had turned a corner and looked up, and there, standing at the mouth of an alley he had walked past 100 times, was Nathan Lancel. Not a photo, not a name in a newspaper. Nathan, in person, in the rain, 4 feet away and looking directly at him. Teo had made the calculation in under 2 seconds. The man following him was a problem. Nathan was a different kind of problem, but Nathan was a known variable. Teo had spent 5 years studying the known variable. He knew Nathan's pattern, Nathan's ego, Nathan's precise brand of controlled alpha authority. He knew that Nathan, whatever else he was, operated by a code, and that code included not tolerating other men's games being played in his direct line of sight. So Teo asked, he said please, and he asked, and it worked. That part worked. What Teo had not calculated, what he could not have calculated, because probability has limits, was the other 2. Dorian and Zeke Lancel stand back at the alley entrance now, returning from wherever they sent the man in the grey coat. Dorian, the one who had been watching with his hands in his pockets, looks at Teo with the same flat calm he had before. Zeke, the one with the phone, has put it away. He is looking at Teo with something slightly different in his expression. Not hostility, closer to curiosity. The specific, unhurried curiosity of a man who has just noticed a detail that does not fit the picture. Teo does not let himself look at them for more than a second. He brings his eyes back to Nathan. Thank you, he says, even controlled. I'll go now. Nathan does not move out of the way. You'll go, Nathan repeats, the same flat restatement, and his eyes are doing something Teo does not like. They are moving over his face with the deliberate care of a man trying to play something. Where do I know you from? Also not a question. Teo's pulse spikes once hard behind his ribs. He keeps his face still. He has had 5 years of practice keeping his face still when his pulse spikes. You don't, he says. Nathan looks at him for 3 more seconds. The rain falls. The neon bleeds. Somewhere above them a window opens and then closes again, and the sound of a television leaks briefly into the alley and then disappears. Zeke, Nathan says. Teo goes very still. Zeke steps forward. He stops beside Nathan and looks at Teo with that same curious expression, closer now, and then he tilts his head 1 degree to the left and says, very quietly, his eyes. That is all he says, just that, his eyes. And Nathan, for the first time since this began, stops looking at Teo's face and looks specifically at his eyes. The silver grey of them. The particular shade that is not common, that is in fact rare enough to be notable, rare enough to be the kind of thing a person only sees in 2 places their entire life if they are very unlucky or very observant. The silence that follows is the longest one yet. Teo knows what Nathan is seeing. He has known for 4 years and 11 months what Nathan would see if he ever looked closely enough. He has built his entire life around the specific, daily, exhausting work of making sure Nathan never got close enough to look. 4 feet, that is all the distance left between 5 years of careful living and the moment everything changes. Nathan's eyes lift back to Teo's face, and something in his expression, for the very first time, is no longer flat. The brownstone on West 49th is dark, except for the lamp in the front window, the one Teo always leaves on. He sees it from half a block away, and his shoulders drop exactly 1 centimeter, the involuntary, physical exhale of a man who has conditioned himself to breathe normally only when he can confirm that light is still on. The rain has thinned to a mist now. His shoes are soaked through. He left the alley the moment Nathan's expression shifted because he recognized, with cold precision, that a shifting expression is the exact moment a man starts asking questions out loud, and Teo could not afford any of those questions. Not tonight. Not with Dorian and Zeke already standing there and Zeke already saying those 2 words, his eyes, with that tone that meant something had connected in Zeke Lancel's very sharp, very dangerous mind. He had said once more that he was leaving, and this time Nathan had stepped aside. Teo does not know why. He has been trying not to think about why for the last 8 blocks. He takes the brownstone steps 2 at a time and lets himself in with his key, and the first thing he hears is the television, a cartoon, something with a lot of bright sound effects, and then the first thing he sees is Claudette, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug and a paperback, and she looks up and her eyes do the thing they always do when he comes home late and wet and wearing the particular expression he is currently wearing. They go careful. "They're asleep," she says. 9:15, both of them, no arguments. Amos wanted a 3rd story and I told him one more and he was out before I hit the 2nd page. Teo exhales. Good. He sets his keys on the counter. His hands are steadier than they have any right to be. "Thank you, Claudette." She watches him cross to the sink and run the cold water and hold his wrists under it. She does not ask. She has worked for him long enough to know when asking helps and when it doesn't. She picks up her paperback. She is a woman of 61 who raised 4 sons in Baltimore and has seen enough to understand that some men process things by moving through rooms quietly, and that the right thing to do is let them. Teo dries his hands. He goes down the hall to the boys' room. The door is open 3 inches, the way he leaves it. He pushes it to the angle where he can see both beds. In the bed on the left, Amos sleeps on his stomach with one arm hanging off the mattress and his silver hair fanned across the pillow, his small fist still loosely curled around a toy car he has been carrying everywhere for 2 months. In the bed on the right, Ezra sleeps on his back, perfectly still, with the composed, serious expression he wears even in unconsciousness, his dark lashes against his cheekbone and his chest rising and falling in the patient rhythm of a child who has decided that sleep is a task to be completed with full commitment. Teo stands in the doorway for 43 seconds. He counts them the way he counts silences when his heart needs to slow down. Then he pulls the door back to its 3-inch angle and goes to his own room and sits on the edge of the bed in his wet clothes and stares at the wall. 5 years ago, Teo was 20 years old and sitting in the back of a town car outside a charity gala in Connecticut, trying to figure out how to get inside without a printed invitation. He had a name on the guest list, a client of the small financial consulting firm where he had been working since he was 18, and a borrowed blazer that was 2 sizes too large in the shoulders, and the particular combination of nerve and calculation that had carried him through every room he technically had no business being in since he was 16. He had gotten in. He had always gotten in. Nathan Lancel had been there for the same reason every billionaire alpha was there, the optics of philanthropy, and he had been standing near the back bar looking at his phone with the expression of a man counting the minutes until he could leave. Teo had walked past him twice before Nathan looked up. On the 3rd pass, Nathan had said without preamble, "You've been doing laps. Either you're looking for someone or you want me to think you're not looking at me." Teo had stopped. He had looked at Nathan directly, which most people did not do. He had said, "I was looking for the bar and now I've found it." Nathan had almost smiled. Almost, "What are you drinking?" That was the beginning. One night, a suite at the Langham with a view of the city lights and rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows, which Teo has thought about more times than he will ever admit, not because it was romantic. He has never let himself call it romantic, but because it was the last night he spent purely as himself, before everything changed and he became instead a father and a plan and a set of precautions. He found out 8 weeks later, 2 tests, both positive. He sat in the bathroom of his studio apartment in Maryland with the tests on the edge of the sink, and his phone in his hand with Nathan's number, gotten through channels, tracked down with the same methodical patience he applied to everything, and he thought about what it would mean to make that call. Nathan Lancel, billionaire, alpha, mafia. One word from him and Teo's life became something he could no longer control. One decision and Teo became a problem to be managed or a secret to be kept or worst of all, a possession. His children, not yet born, not yet named, not yet real in any way he could hold, would become leverage, would become heirs in a war they had not signed up for. Would become, from the first breath they drew, the sons of a Mafia triplet, with everything that meant and everything that cost. He put the phone down. He did not make the call. He has not regretted it. He has come close, on certain nights when Amos has a fever and cries, and Teo is alone in the apartment at 2 in the morning pressing a cool cloth to his son's forehead, and thinking about what it would be like to not do this alone. He has come close, but close is not the same as regretting it, and Teo has always been very precise about the difference between the two. He stands up, he peels off his wet shirt and drops it in the hamper. He crosses to the window and looks out at West 49th, at the wet street and the parked cars, and the yellow glow of the bodega on the corner that is always open, and always has the same man behind the counter who nods at Teo every morning when he comes in for coffee. Ordinary, all of it ordinary. A life assembled piece by piece from ordinary things, deliberately, the way you build something you intend to last. And then the buzzer sounds. One long press, not the polite two-tap of a delivery, one long, flat, deliberate press, the kind that means whoever is outside is not asking, they are statting. Teo's hand goes still on the window frame. Behind him, down the hall, he hears Claudette's chair push back. He hears her footsteps on the kitchen tile. He hears the low, careful sound of her voice, "I'll check the camera," and then silence. Then her voice again, quieter, "Teo." He already knows before he turns around. The camera feed on Claudette's phone is small but clear enough. One man at the brownstone door, black coat, still. Looking directly into the camera, lends the way a person looks when they already know the camera is there, and they want whoever is watching to understand that they know. It is not Nathan. It is Dorian. Teo takes the phone from Claudette's hand and looks at the screen for 4 seconds and then hands it back. His voice when he speaks is completely level. "Don't buzz him in, don't say anything to him, go sit with the boys." Claudette does not ask questions. She takes her phone and goes down the hall, and Teo hears the soft click of the boys' bedroom door pulling to. He goes to the kitchen drawer, third one down, left side. Under the utility bills and the takeout menus and the rubber-banded collection of coupons Claudette clips from the free newspaper that comes on Thursdays. He pulls out a phone, not his regular phone. A second one, prepaid, charged and ready, the number known to exactly 2 people in the world, both of whom Teo has never needed to call at midnight and prays he still does not need to call tonight. He puts it in his back pocket. Then he goes to the front hall and looks at the intercom screen. Dorian Lancel is still standing at the door. He has not buzzed again. He is just standing there with his hands in his coat pockets, his face turned up toward the camera, waiting with the infinite, unhurried patience of a man who has decided he has all the time available. Teo presses the speaker button. "What do you want?" A pause, then Dorian's voice comes through the small speaker, clear and measured, with the particular cadence of someone who carefully selects each word before releasing it. "To talk." "About what?" "You know about what." Teo looks at the screen for 3 more seconds. Dorian does not shift his weight, does not look away, does not do any of the small physical things people do when they are uncertain. He just stands there in the rain that has started again, getting wet, and waits. Teo does not buzz him in, but he speaks again. "We can talk from here." Another pause, then almost imperceptibly, something in Dorian's expression adjusts. Not warmth, not hostility. Something between them, precise and neutral, the expression of a man who has just recalibrated. "You built something here," Dorian says. "West 49th, the brownstone, the consulting work, the crypto positions, yes, we know about those. Solid mid-cap entries, patient strategy." Teo's jaw tightens. "I'm not telling you this to threaten you," Dorian says. "I'm telling you because I want you to understand that we've known where you were for 14 months, and in 14 months we have not knocked on your door. Tonight is the first time." The rain taps against the intercom housing. Teo listens to it. "Nathan didn't send me," Dorian says. "Nathan doesn't know I'm here. That's also something I want you to understand before you decide what to do next." Teo says nothing for a long moment. He looks at the screen. He looks at Dorian's face, at the flat, even steadiness of it, and he runs through what he knows about Dorian Lancel, which is less than he knows about Nathan, because Dorian is the quieter of the 3, the one who does not appear at galas or in Forbes profiles, the one who is photographed the least and therefore, Teo has always understood, the most dangerous. "Why are you here?" Teo says. Dorian looks directly into the camera, because in about 48 hours, Nathan is going to figure out what Zeke started figuring out tonight. And when he does, he's not going to come alone and he's not going to stand in the rain and wait. I thought you might want the 48 hours. The intercom goes quiet. Dorian does not add anything. He does not try to soften it or cushion it or make it into anything other than what it is. He just stands there in his black coat in the rain and lets the information sit. Teo stares at the screen. Downstairs on the street, a car passes. Its headlights sweep across the front of the building and move on. The city does not care, it never cares. Teo thinks about Amos, asleep with his fist around a toy car. He thinks about Ezra, composed and still, his small chest rising and falling. He thinks about the red envelope in the kitchen drawer and the address written inside it, and the 2 times he has updated it, and whether there is enough time to update it a third. He releases the speaker button. He goes to the kitchen and opens his laptop and pulls up his calendar and his asset accounts in 3 separate tabs and begins to move through them quickly, methodically, the way he has rehearsed doing on the specific bad night when rehearsal becomes action. He is not panicking. He has never been able to afford panic. Panic is a luxury for people who have someone else to do the thinking. Teo has always had to do the thinking himself. He transfers 3 positions. He sends a message, 11 words, to a number saved only as he updates one document, saves it, closes it. He opens the red envelope, reads the address inside, crosses it out, writes a new one, and puts the envelope back under the takeout menus. It takes him 22 minutes. When he is done, he closes the laptop and sits in the kitchen in the dark, and listens to the city, and thinks about 48 hours, and what 48 hours actually means, in practical terms, when a man like Nathan Lancel is the variable on the other side of the clock. His regular phone buzzes on the counter. He looks at the screen. An unknown number, 1 message, 4 words. We need to talk. Not Dorian's number, not Zeke's, a number he has never seen before. But he already knows, with the cold, absolute certainty of a man who has spent 5 years thinking 3 steps ahead, whose number it is. The coffee shop on 9th Avenue has 16 tables, and Teo knows every exit. He started coming here 8 months ago because the oat milk flat whites are good and the owner, a woman named Bernadette, keeps the music at a volume that allows conversation without requiring it. He comes on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, always the same corner table, always the same order, always the window seat that faces the door. Not by habit, by design. There is a difference and Teo has always lived on that difference. It is Thursday morning, 41 hours since Dorian's message, 26 hours since the 4-word text from the unknown number that Teo has not responded to. He came here anyway. He brought the boys because the alternative was leaving them at the brownstone with Claudette, and he has not been able to be more than 30 feet from them since Tuesday night. Amos is at the small table by the window with a cup of hot chocolate and a paper napkin. He is currently folding into a shape that he insists will be a crane, but currently looks like a frustrated rectangle. He is 4 years old and certain about everything, and loud about his certainty in a way that Teo has long since stopped trying to quiet, because the certainty is the part of Amos that will keep Amos alive. Ezra is beside him with his own hot chocolate, drinking it methodically, watching Amos fold the napkin with the careful, patient expression of a boy who has already decided the crane is not going to happen, but sees no reason to say so. Teo is at the counter with his flat white and his phone, and the clean, quiet discipline of a man running threat assessments behind an expression of total calm. He has not slept more than 3 hours. He does not feel it, feeling it is not currently available to him. Bernadette sets a small plate of almond biscotti next to his elbow. You look like Manhattan, she says. He looks up. Like the city, she clarifies, running on nothing and pretending it's fine. He almost smiles, I'm fine. She takes the empty cups at the end of the counter and moves on because she is, in Teo's estimation, a woman of great intelligence who understands the geometry of when to push and when to let something sit. He picks up the biscotti and eats it standing at the counter, because eating is a mechanical requirement, and he has learned to treat it like one. The bell above the coffee shop door sounds. Teo does not look up immediately. He finishes his biscotti, he picks up his flat white, and then, with the measured timing of someone who has rehearsed appearing unhurried, he looks toward the door. Nathan Lancel walks in alone. He is in a charcoal suit today, no coat, and he stops just inside the door and scans the room the way people scan rooms when they are looking for one specific thing and have decided they will find it. His eyes move past the counter, past the couple by the wall, past the woman with the laptop, past the 2 small boys at the window table. His eyes stop. They stop on Amos, who has given up on the crane and is now folding the napkin in half over and over, pressing each fold down with his small fist in a gesture that is particular and unconscious and exact. The same motion, the same pressure. The same repeated fold that Nathan Lancel uses, that Teo once watched Nathan Lancel do with a cocktail napkin at a bar in the Langham 5 years ago while they were talking, a private repetitive motion most people would never notice. Teo's hand tightens on his coffee cup. Nathan's eyes move from Amos to Ezra. They rest on Ezra for a moment, on Ezra's composed stillness, on the serious set of his small face, on the particular angle of his jaw, and then on his eyes, which are looking back at Nathan with the calm, direct, unhurried gaze of a child who does not yet know what strangers are supposed to make him feel. Dark eyes, mostly dark, but in the light coming through the coffee shop window, silver, a ring of silver at the edge of the iris, unmistakable once you see it, impossible to unsee. Nathan looks up and finds Teo. Teo does not look away. He meets Nathan's eyes directly, the way he has been doing since he was 20 years old and walked past a man at a Connecticut charity bar 3 times with a borrowed blazer and a plan. He sets his coffee cup down. He straightens. His face gives nothing. And for the second time in 48 hours, in a city of 8 million people, the distance between Teo Beaumont and Nathan Lancel is 4 feet. And this time there is no rain, there is no alley, there are no shadows. There are only 2 small boys at a table by the window, and the particular silence of a man who is very quickly doing the kind of math that changes everything. Nathan takes 1 step toward the counter. His voice is low and even, and carries under the coffee shop music like a current under still water. How old are they? Teo holds his gaze. That's not a conversation we're having here. How old? I said. Teo, Nathan says his name. Just his name, quiet and flat, and with the full weight of a man who has, in the last 48 hours, done his own calculations and arrived at a number he is no longer uncertain about. How old? The music plays. Bernadette moves behind the counter. Outside the window, a city bus rolls past and rocks on its suspension, and the pigeons on the sidewalk scatter and resettle. At the small table by the window, Amos looks up from his napkin and across the room and finds the tall man in the charcoal suit. He stares at him with the open, fearless curiosity of a 4-year-old who does not yet know to be afraid of anything. Then Amos turns to Ezra and says, in his clear, carrying voice, "That man has the same eyes as you." The coffee shop does not go quiet. The music keeps playing. Bernadette keeps moving. The woman with the laptop keeps typing. The world does not pause for this. But Nathan Lancel has gone completely still. And Teo, for the first time in 5 years of perfect, patient calculation, has run out of time. Teo pays the check in cash. He does it calmly, the bills already folded in his front pocket because he has been ready to leave since he sat down, and he lifts Amos with 1 arm. Amos immediately hooks his legs around Teo's hip and goes back to his napkin, still folding, and takes Ezra's hand with the other, and he walks toward the door without looking at Nathan, without breaking stride, without giving Nathan's stillness anything to attach to. Nathan does not stop him physically, but his voice follows him to the door. "I'll be outside in 10 minutes. Teo does not answer. He pushes through the door and steps onto 9th Avenue and turns north and walks. Ezra's hand is small and steady in his. Amos presses his face against Teo's shoulder and makes the sound he makes when he is 3/4 asleep on his feet, a low, content humming. The city moves around them in both directions, indifferent and loud and enormous. Teo walks 1 block. He stops at the corner and lets Amos slide down and takes both their hands and stands at the light and breathes. He thinks about what Amos said. That man has the same eyes as you. Said clearly, loudly, across a quiet coffee shop, with the complete absence of subtext that 4-year-olds operate from because they do not yet understand that some observations are supposed to stay inside. Ezra's eyes, silver at the edge of the dark iris, visible in the right light, unmistakable to anyone who knew where to look. Zeke had seen it in the alley 2 nights ago, and said 2 words that had sent Dorian to Teo's door by midnight. Nathan had now seen it in full light at close range, confirmed and named by his own son's voice before Teo could move. 5 years of positioning and precaution, and the specific daily discipline of building a life that did not have a door a man like Nathan Lancel could walk through. And it had come apart because of a napkin fold, because of the way Amos presses a crease down with his small fist, in the exact unconscious motion of a man he has never met, because bodies remember things that were never taught. The light changes. Teo crosses. He walks another half block and stops in the entrance of a dry cleaner and crouches down to Ezra and Amos's level. Ezra looks at him with the steady, direct gaze that has always felt, to Teo, like looking at something older than 4 years old. Amos is trying to fold the napkin again. He has not given up on the crane. "We're going to walk to Miss Claudette's building," Teo says. "The one with the green door, do you remember it?" Amos looks up. "The one with the cat." "That's the one. Can you walk fast for me?" Amos holds up his napkin. "I almost have the crane." "You can finish it there." Teo stands. He looks down the block both directions. The street is ordinary. No black coats, no stillness, no deliberate, unhurried men. Just the city doing its Thursday thing in both directions. He takes the boys and walks. Behind him, 10 minutes after Teo left the coffee shop, Nathan Lancel steps out onto 9th Avenue and stands on the sidewalk and looks north. He stands there for a moment. He does not move. Then he takes out his phone and makes a call. It rings twice. The voice that answers is Zeke's. Nathan says 4 words, "Find the brownstone address." He does not say anything else. He ends the call and stands on the sidewalk with his phone in his hand, and his eyes on the moving, shifting, indifferent crowd on 9th Avenue. And something is happening in his expression that has not happened before. Something that is not the flat, controlled, armored calm of Nathan Lancel at a gala, or in a boardroom, or in a rain-soaked alley. Something underneath that, something older and less practiced. Something that looks, on the face of a billionaire alpha mafia triplet, who has not been uncertain about anything since he was 19 years old, very much like the specific, raw, unprepared feeling of a man who has just discovered he has missed 4 years of something he cannot get back. Meanwhile, 8 blocks north and moving fast, Teo Beaumont walks his sons through the ordinary morning of a city that does not know what is happening and does not care. Amos is talking. He is talking about the crane and about the man in the coffee shop, and about whether the cat at Miss Claudette's building eats regular cat food or the fancy kind in the small cans. He is 4 years old and the world is a place of endless, manageable interest. Ezra says nothing. Ezra walks with his hand in Teo's and his eyes forward, and after 2 blocks, without looking up, he says in his quiet, serious voice, "Papa, that man is going to come to our house." Teo does not slow down. He does not look down at Ezra with alarm or false reassurance. He just says evenly, the way he says all true things, "I know." Ezra processes this for half a block. "Then, are you going to let him?" Teo looks straight ahead. The green door is at the end of the block. He can see it from here. He thinks about 48 hours, which has now become something closer to 48 minutes. He thinks about the prepaid phone in his pocket and the number saved as R and the 11-word message he sent 2 nights ago that has not yet been answered. He thinks about Nathan's face in the coffee shop, that thing underneath the controlled surface, the thing Teo caught and immediately looked away from because looking at it for too long would require him to feel something he has not allowed himself to feel in 5 years. "I don't know yet," he says. Ezra nods once, the nod of a 4-year-old who is already treating the unknown as a manageable condition rather than a catastrophe. He is, in this way, entirely his father's son. They reach the green door. Teo buzzes. Claudette's voice comes through the speaker, warm and immediate. Teo exhales. Amos holds up the napkin. Against all odds, against the full weight of probability, it is recognizably, barely, crookedly, defiantly, a crane. And Teo's phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out, not the prepaid, his regular phone, the unknown number from 2 nights ago, not a text this time. A call. It rings once, twice. Teo stares at the screen and the green door opens and Claudette is there, and she looks at his face and then at the phone, and she takes both boys inside with the quiet competence of a woman who has seen Teo's face do this before, and the door closes behind them, and Teo is alone on the step with the phone still ringing in his hand. He answers it on the 4th ring. Silence on the other end, then breathing, then a voice he has not heard in 5 years except inside his own memory, low and even and carrying under everything the way it always has. "I'm outside your building," Nathan says. Nathan is standing on the brownstone steps when Teo opens the door. Not at the bottom, not on the sidewalk with reasonable distance between them. On the steps, the 3rd one, which puts him at eye level with Teo, which puts the distance between them at approximately 2 feet, which is close enough that Teo can see the exact quality of Nathan's stillness and understand that it is not the controlled stillness from the alley or the coffee shop. This is different. This is the stillness of something that has been held under pressure for a very long time and is now, quietly, beginning to push back. Teo does not step back. He fills the doorframe and looks at Nathan and says nothing. Nathan says, "The boys." Not a question, not an accusation, just those 2 words, flat and direct, dropped between them like something heavy set down on a table. Teo says they're not here. "I know, a beat. I watched Claudette take them inside 20 minutes ago. Building on West 46, green door, 3rd floor unit. She's lived there 11 years. Her sister owns the building. You've had an emergency arrangement with her since the boys were 18 months old." He pauses, not for effect, to let Teo understand the full scope of what he is saying. I'm not here for the boys, Teo, I'm here for you. The city moves behind Nathan's shoulders. A delivery truck double parks on the street. A woman with a stroller navigates around it. Two men in hard hats eat lunch on a Con-Ed barrier. All of it ordinary, all of it continuing. You said 14 months, Teo says. Nathan's expression shifts. What? Dorian told me you've known where I was for 14 months. Teo keeps his voice even, which means you've known for 14 months and you didn't come. He lets that sit for exactly 1 second. So what changed in 48 hours that couldn't wait 14 months? Nathan looks at him steadily. The question lands on him and he does not deflect it, and he does not answer it immediately, which tells Teo more than any answer would. Nathan Lancel has spent his entire adult life moving through the world as the person who already knows everything relevant. Right now, on these steps, in the Thursday afternoon light, he looks like a man who has just discovered there are categories of things he did not know he needed to know. Can we go inside? Nathan says. No. Another beat. Nathan accepts this without arguing. He looks at Teo's face with the same careful, deliberate attention he used in the coffee shop, like a man reading a document he knows is important and is determined not to misread. How are they? He says, quiet, direct. The boys. Something moves through Teo's chest. He does not let it reach his face. They're fine. What are their names? Teo is quiet for 3 seconds. The question costs him something to answer and Nathan knows it costs him something, and neither of them pretends otherwise. Amos, Teo says, and Ezra. Nathan repeats them. Just repeats them, once quietly, the way a person repeats something they are moving from short-term memory to somewhere permanent. His jaw tightens and releases. He looks away for 1 moment, down at the steps, and then back up. I missed 4 years, he says. You missed 5, Teo says. The pregnancy was a year. Nathan goes still in a new way, the math of it hitting him fully, visibly, in real time. 5 years. A year of pregnancy he did not know about. 4 years of boys who exist and walk and talk and fold napkins and have names. 5 years of a man who built a life specifically in the shape of Nathan's absence. Why didn't you? You know why? Teo's voice does not rise. It does not have to. You were Nathan Lancel. You still are. 1 call and I stop being a person and start being a problem to be solved. 1 call and my sons stop being mine and start being Lancel heirs in a family that runs half its business in cash and the other half through shell companies that the FBI has been watching for 6 years. He holds Nathan's eyes. I was 20 years old. I had nothing except my own judgment. And my judgment said run. Nathan does not argue. He does not defend himself or the family name or the empire. He just absorbs it, the full weight of it, the full, unvarnished accuracy of it, and he stays on the step and he does not look away from Teo's face. That is the thing Teo had not prepared for. Nathan staying. Nathan standing in the afternoon light on the 3rd step and absorbing every true and cutting thing without retreating behind the armor Teo had expected him to retreat behind. The armor Teo had been counting on. From somewhere down the block, a car alarm starts and stops. A pigeon lands on the railing 2 feet from Nathan's elbow. Nathan does not look at it. I'm not asking to take anything from you, Nathan says. His voice has dropped further, into a register Teo has only heard once before years ago in a different city. I'm not asking to undo what you built. I'm asking. He stops. He looks at the space between them. When he speaks again, the words come out with the deliberate, careful weight of a man choosing each one precisely because he cannot afford to choose wrong. I'm asking what it would take for you to let me in, on your terms. Whatever those terms are, whatever that looks like. Teo stands in the doorframe. The question is in the air between them, and it is the most dangerous question Nathan could possibly have asked, not because it is threatening, but because it is not. Because it is exactly the question Teo had decided, 5 years ago and every day since, that Nathan would never think to ask. His phone buzzes, he looks at the screen, the prepaid phone, finally answering, 2 words. Call me. Teo looks up from the screen and Nathan is watching him, and the afternoon is pressing down on all of it, and somewhere on West 46th, a 4-year-old boy is finishing a crane he should not have been able to fold, and his brother is sitting beside him with silver-dark eyes that belong to a family he has never met, and the whole careful architecture of the last 5 years is balancing on what Teo says next. He looks at Nathan. Come back tonight, he says, 8 o'clock, alone. Then he steps back inside and closes the door. He stands in the front hall and listens to the city and waits to hear Nathan's footsteps leave the steps. They come after 6 seconds, measured, unhurried, moving away. Teo looks at the prepaid phone. He calls R. It rings once and a woman's voice answers, low and direct. How bad? Nathan Lancel knows about the boys. Silence on the other end. Then, how much does he know? Enough, Teo says. He saw them. He asked their names. A pause. He asked what it would take. Another silence, different quality. And what did you tell him? Teo looks at the closed front door. I told him to come back tonight. The woman on the other end of the call, whose name is Renata, and who has been the only person in Teo's life for 5 years who knows the whole truth of all of it, is quiet for a long moment. Then she says, very carefully, Teo, which one of you is walking into that conversation and which one of you is walking out of it? Teo does not answer right away, and his silence is its own answer, in the way that silences always are between two people who know each other well enough to hear what is not being said. The bakery 2 blocks from the brownstone is called Ledger and Crumb, and it smells like brown butter and cardamom, and Teo has been bringing the boys here every Saturday morning for 2 years. He brings them tonight because he needs neutral ground. He needs a place that is his, that has his rhythms and his routines layered into the walls, and not a place where Nathan can enter and immediately read the full geography of Teo's life from the arrangement of furniture and the drawings on the refrigerator. The bakery closes at 8. Teo has a key because the owner, a man named Devonte, has owed Teo a significant financial favor since 2024 and has expressed that favor in practical terms. Teo called him at 4. Devonte said yes without asking why. Nathan arrives at 8 o'clock exactly. Teo hears the knock and opens the back door, and Nathan steps into the kitchen, into the warm air that smells like the tail end of the day's baking, and looks around the space once, reading it, cataloguing it. The way he reads every room, and then looks at Teo. The boys are at the small prep table in the corner. Amos is eating a leftover cinnamon roll, which Devonte left specifically because Devonte has met Amos 4 times and understands that Amos operates at higher efficiency when in possession of sugar. Ezra has a cup of warm milk and is reading a picture book he brought from home, holding it with both hands, fully absorbed. Nathan sees them immediately. He goes very still in the kitchen doorway, and his eyes move between them with the slow, careful attention of a man who is seeing something for the second time, but understanding it for the first time, and the two experiences are entirely different. Amos looks up. He looks at Nathan with the open, direct assessment of a child who has not yet learned the social performance of pretending not to stare. You're the man from the coffee place, he says. I am, Nathan says. Amos considers this. Did you want a cinnamon roll? There's only one, but I could share some of it. Nathan looks at the half-eaten cinnamon roll being held out in a small, sticky fist. Something moves across his expression, quick and unguarded, gone almost before it registers, and he says, I'm okay, thank you though. Amos shrugs and goes back to eating. Ezra has not looked up from his book. Teo moves to the prep table and leans against it, and crosses his arms and looks at Nathan. Say what you came to say. Nathan steps fully into the kitchen. He does not sit. He stands in the warm, brown butter air with his hands at his sides, and he looks at Teo, and then at the boys, and then back at Teo, and when he speaks his voice is low enough that it stays between them. I want to know them. Teo says nothing. Not to take over, not to install them in the family structure or put them in front of lawyers or change what their life looks like. Nathan's voice is controlled, but there is something underneath the control now that was not there before, something that cost him to keep level. I want to know who they are, who Amos is, who Ezra is. He stops. His jaw works once. I want to know if Amos always offers the last of his food to people he doesn't know, or if that was just tonight. Teo's arms stay crossed. His face stays still. But his chest does the thing it has been doing all day, the thing he keeps refusing to name. He always does, Teo says quietly. Nathan absorbs this. He nods once slowly. And Ezra, Teo says, because something compels him to, some impulse that bypasses the 5 years of careful containment, has been reading that same page for 10 minutes. He's not reading. He's listening to every word we're saying. Nathan looks at Ezra. Ezra turns a page, deliberately, without looking up. Nathan almost smiles. Almost. The same almost from 5 years ago at a Connecticut bar that Teo has refused to think about for 5 years and has thought about anyway. Owe you an accounting, Nathan says. He brings his eyes back to Teo's face. I know that, 5 years of it. Everything you went through that I wasn't there for, not because you didn't try, but because you made a decision based on what I was, and I can't argue with what I was. I can only account for what I am now and what I am willing to be. A pause, which is whatever this needs me to be. Whatever keeps those boys safe and keeps you in control of your own life. I'm not here to reclaim anything. I'm here to ask permission. The bakery kitchen is warm and quiet around them. Outside, the city does its ongoing city thing, indifferent and loud. In here there is only brown butter and cardamom, and the sound of Amos's paper napkin. He has found another one somewhere and is folding again, and the specific, enormous weight of a moment that has been 5 years in arriving. Teo looks at Nathan for a long time. He looks at him the way he has been trained by 5 years of survival to look at everything, measuring, assessing, looking for the gap between what is being said and what is true. He finds no gap. That is the most dangerous finding of all. Ezra, Teo says. Ezra looks up from his book. He looks at his father. Then he looks at Nathan with the calm, direct, patient gaze of a child who has been listening the entire time and has already, in the quiet architecture of his 4-year-old mind, reached a conclusion. Nathan meets Ezra's eyes, the silver at the edge of the dark iris, unmistakable in the warm bakery light. Neither of them looks away. "Papa," Ezra says, still looking at Nathan, "is he going to stay?" The question fills the kitchen, simple and enormous, the way the most important questions always are. Teo opens his mouth, and from the back of the kitchen, from the corner where he has been eating his cinnamon roll with complete contentment, Amos says, without looking up from his napkin, "I think he should stay. He has a sad face." Nathan looks at Amos. Then, for the first time fully, without the armor and without the control pulling it back, he laughs, short and quiet and real, the most human sound Teo has heard from him across 5 years and 2 encounters. Teo looks at his sons, then he looks at Nathan. "Sit down," he says. Nathan sits. He takes the stool across the prep table, and Amos immediately slides his napkin crane, finished now, recognizable, a genuine small miracle of persistence, across the table toward him, because Amos operates on a simple internal logic that says the people at the table should have something to hold. Nathan picks it up, he turns it over in his hands, he does not put it down. Teo watches this and says nothing for a moment, and then he pulls out the stool on his side of the table and sits too, and they are facing each other across a narrow prep table in a closed bakery, with 2 small boys between them and 5 years of uncrossed distance, pressing against every wall. "The night I found out," Teo says, "I sat with my phone for 2 hours. Nathan is still. I had your number. I found it through Marcus Delfield. You know him, he ran the Connecticut Gala, he owed me a reference. I had it written on a piece of paper. I sat with it for 2 hours and I ran every version of the call." Teo's voice is level, not cold, not performative, just true. "In every version, you had more power than me. In every version, my children became something the Lancel family had a claim on. In every version, I stopped being Teo and started being a situation." Nathan listens, he does not interrupt, he does not defend. "I was 20 years old and I had $17,000 in a savings account and a consulting job that paid $32 an hour and a studio apartment in Maryland with a window that faced a parking garage." Teo holds Nathan's eyes. "And you were what you are, so I made the only calculation that protected them. I ran." Nathan sets the napkin crane down carefully on the table between them. "And now you're here," he says. "You built all of this, West 49th, the consulting firm, the crypto positions. You built all of it yourself from that studio apartment, and it is solid and it is real and it belongs to you." A pause. "And I want you to know, I need you to know that none of that changes, not one piece of it. What you built does not become mine because I am sitting in this kitchen." Teo studies him. "You understand that's not how your family works." "I understand that I am not asking on behalf of my family." Nathan's voice drops slightly. Precise, clear, "I'm asking on behalf of myself." From the corner, Amos has climbed down from his stool and is now leaning against Nathan's arm, looking at the napkin crane in Nathan's hand with proprietary interest. Nathan looks down at him. Amos looks up. This lasts 3 seconds, and then Amos takes the crane back and climbs back onto his stool and resumes inspecting it, satisfied. Nathan watches this. His expression does something complicated and brief that he does not hide quickly enough. Ezra from behind his picture book says quietly, "Dorian came to our house." The kitchen goes quiet. Teo looks at Ezra. "You saw that?" "I heard his voice through the door," Ezra says, with the matter-of-fact precision of a child who misses nothing and files everything. "He said you had 48 hours. Nathan's head turns toward Teo. "Dorian came here Tuesday night after the alley." Teo meets his eyes. "He said you didn't send him." Nathan is quiet for a moment. Something moves behind his eyes, not anger exactly, more the particular expression of a man who is recalibrating an understanding of his own brother. "He was right that I didn't send him." A pause. "He was also right to come. He told me you'd known for 14 months. "Yes. Why didn't you come then? Nathan looks at the table. For the first time since he walked into this bakery, he is not looking at Teo or at the boys. He is looking at the table with the expression of a man working out whether he owes the truth and deciding, visibly, that he does. Because I didn't know what I was walking into, he says. I knew where you were, I knew you'd built a life. I didn't know about the boys, we knew there was a child. Zeke found that much, but not that there were two. And not, he stops. When I saw them in the coffee shop, when Amos said that, he lifts his eyes. I understood for the first time what 14 months of staying away had cost. Teo lets this sit. I have a brother, Nathan says, who came to your door at midnight and warned you without my knowledge, because he understood what was at stake before I did. And I have another brother who looked at your son in an alley in the rain and saw what I should have seen the moment I looked at you. He looks directly at Teo. My family is not a simple thing. You know that. The business, the structure, the way we operate, none of that becomes harmless because I am sitting here asking you to trust me. I know that. I'm not asking you to trust the Lancel name. Then what are you asking me to trust? Me, Nathan says, simply, directly, with no architecture around it. Just me. Amos is asleep, somewhere between the cinnamon roll and the conversation. Gravity won and he is now folded over his arms on the prep table, breathing slowly, the crane still loosely in his fist. Ezra has put the book down. He is sitting with his chin in his hand, looking at Nathan with his silver-dark eyes, and his expression is the expression of someone who has already decided something and is waiting for the adults to catch up. Teo looks at his sons, at Amos asleep, who offered a stranger the last of his food because that is simply who Amos is. At Ezra awake, who has been taking the measure of this man for the last hour, with the patience and precision of someone 4 times his age. He looks at Nathan. I have conditions, Teo says. Nathan says, tell me. The boys know who you are on my timeline, not yours. No Lancel family involvement without my direct agreement on each instance. The life I built stays mine, no financial interference, no security teams in my building without my say, no Dorian or Zeke showing up at my door again without calling first. He holds Nathan's eyes, and the moment any of this becomes about the family business and not about those 2 boys, it stops. Immediately, non-negotiable. Nathan listens to every word. He does not rush to agree and he does not flinch from any of it. He takes it in full, the way a man takes in something that is serious and true, and when Teo is done he nods once. Those are fair conditions, he says. All of them. Teo studies him for a long moment. There's one more thing, he says. Nathan waits. You don't get to feel guilty about the 5 years in front of them. Teo's voice is quiet but absolute. Whatever you carry about that, the missed time, the not knowing, that's yours to work through and not somewhere near those boys. They don't carry your guilt. They're not a debt being repaid. They're Amos and Ezra. A pause. Do you understand that? Nathan is quiet for 3 full seconds. And then he says, with a weight and a directness that Teo feels go straight through his chest, I understand. Outside the bakery, a car rolls past on the wet street, its headlights sweeping across the kitchen window and moving on. The city does not stop. It never stops. Inside, in the warm brown butter quiet, Amos sleeps with his crane. Ezra watches Nathan. And Nathan Lancel, for the first time in his adult life, sits still in a room and lets someone else hold all the power. Then Teo's phone buzzes. He looks down at the screen. A message from a number he does not recognize. Not Dorian, not Zeke, not Renata. A number that traces, when Teo looks at it with the cold, quick pattern recognition of 5 years of careful living, to a prefix he knows. A prefix used by one specific sector of one specific organization that has been interested in the Lancel family's operations for a very long time. He looks up at Nathan. His voice is even. Did anyone follow you here tonight? Nathan's expression shifts. No. Teo turns his phone screen toward him. Nathan reads the message. His jaw tightens. He is very still. Then he reaches into his jacket and takes out his own phone and makes a call that is answered in one ring, and the word he says is not a greeting and is not a question. It is Zeke's name. Teo moves first. He lifts Amos from the prep table before the boy fully wakes, Amos making the low humming sound and pressing his face into Teo's shoulder, the crane still in his fist. Ezra is already on his feet. Ezra is always already on his feet when the air in a room changes, because Ezra reads rooms the way Teo reads rooms, with the bone-deep, learned precision of someone who has needed to for as long as they can remember. Coat, Teo says to Ezra. Ezra gets his coat. Nathan is on the phone with Zeke, his voice low and clipped, moving in short sentences that contain a great deal of information in very few words, the particular efficiency of a man who has operated in high-pressure situations long enough that language has been stripped down to its load-bearing parts. He ends the call and looks at Teo. The number is a monitored line. Someone ran it to this address inside the last 2 hours. Which means someone tracked you here. Which means someone tracked me here. He says it without flinching. Zeke is 2 minutes out. Teo has Amos against his shoulder and Ezra's hand in his and his keys already in his palm. He looks at Nathan and there is a moment, 3 seconds, no more, where 5 years of practiced self-reliance pushes back hard against the situation and says, "You don't need him, you have the red envelope, you have Renata, you have the address, you know how to move." And all of that is true. All of it is still true. But Amos weighs 38 pounds, and Ezra's hand is small, and the street outside has an unknown variable in it, and Nathan Lancel is standing 4 feet away with the full weight of whatever the Lancel name means working entirely in Teo's direction for the first time. "Back door," Teo says. Nathan moves. He goes to the back door first, the way a person moves when they have decided their job in this moment is to be in front, and he checks the alley in both directions with the flat, rapid assessment of a man who has been moving through dangerous spaces since he was young. He looks back at Teo. Clear. They go out. Alley is wet and cold and smells like restaurant garbage and rain, the same as every alley in Midtown at 8:30 on a weeknight. Teo moves fast with Amos on his shoulder, and Ezra keeping pace beside him with the focused, silent composure that will one day make Ezra either surgeon or a chess grandmaster or possibly both. Nathan stays 2 steps ahead, not running, moving with the quick, controlled stride of someone who has learned that running draws attention and attention is the thing you cannot afford. Zeke is at the end of the alley in a black Tesla, engine running. He does not look surprised to see Teo or the boys. He looks at the boys for 1 second with the same curious, assessing expression from the alley 4 nights ago, and then he looks at Teo and nods once, the nod of a man who is revising a previous assessment and filing the revision. They get in. Zeke drives, he does not ask where. Nathan tells him an address on the Upper West Side that Teo does not recognize, and Teo starts to object, and Nathan says, "Clean building, no connection to the family name. Renata knows it." A pause. "I called her this afternoon." Teo goes still. "You called Renata?" "She called me," Nathan says precisely. 3 hours ago, she wanted to take your measure before tonight. I think she was deciding whether I was a problem you could handle or a problem that needed handling for you." A very slight pause. "She decided I was the first kind." Teo looks at the window and the city sliding past in the dark, and thinks about Renata, brilliant, direct, the woman who had been his attorney and his emergency contact and his closest friend for 4 years, calling Nathan Lancel and taking his measure before giving Teo a clear field. He thinks about what it means that she apparently liked what she found. He thinks about what it means that Nathan, who had every reason to be offended by the existence of Renata, who had every reason to enter this situation with the full authority of the Lancel name and simply override everyone and everything in his path, instead answered her call and apparently passed her test. In the front seat, Ezra has climbed to the middle and is looking out the windshield at the city lights with total, absorbed attention. Zeke glances at him once in the mirror. Then, without looking away from the road, Zeke says, very quietly, "He drives like Nathan." Nathan looks at Zeke. "What?" "The way he's watching the road," Zeke says. "The way he tracks the cars, he's calculating." A pause. "Nathan used to do that in the back seat when we were kids. Papa used to say it meant he was thinking too much for his own good." Nathan looks at Ezra. Ezra, who has not appeared to be listening, says without turning from the windshield, "There's a car that's been behind us for 3 blocks. It's not following us. It just has the same route, but it's good to know where it is." The car is quiet for a moment. Zeke says very softly, "Yeah, that's Nathan." Teo watches his son. He watches Nathan watching his son. He watches something cross Nathan's face that is not performed, not managed, not filtered through 5 years of armor, a raw, undefended look of recognition and longing, and the specific grief of a father who is meeting his child for the first time at 4 years old, and understanding all at once both the gift and the cost of that moment. Nathan does not reach for Ezra. He does not speak. He just looks, and the looking is enough, and Teo sees it and lets it be what it is. Amos has fallen asleep again against Teo's shoulder. His crane is still in his fist. His hair smells like cinnamon and brown butter. The Tesla moves uptown through the dark, wet city, and for the first time in 5 years, Teo Beaumont is in a car he did not drive to a location he did not choose, and he is not afraid. He is something more complicated than afraid. He is something he has not had the time or the safety to be in a very long time. He is uncertain, and for once, the uncertainty is not a threat. When they reach the building on the Upper West Side and Zeke pulls to the curb and the doorman comes out with an umbrella, Nathan looks at Teo and says, very quietly, "Whatever comes next, Whatever that number was, whoever sent it, whatever they think they have, I need you to know that it changes nothing I said in that kitchen tonight. Teo looks at him. Nothing. Nothing, Nathan says. My conditions don't have an expiration, neither does what I'm asking for. Teo holds his eyes for a long moment. Then he looks down at Amos, asleep, and at Ezra, already looking at the new building with systematic interest, cataloguing the exits by instinct. He thinks about a studio apartment in Maryland with a window that faced a parking garage. He thinks about $17,000 and a piece of paper with a phone number he chose not to call. He thinks about 5 years of red envelopes and prepaid phones, and carrying the full weight of 2 lives with nothing but his own hands and his own mind, and the daily, unspectacular, unrewarded courage of a man who decided that survival was enough and made it true. He thinks about Amos offering a stranger the last of his cinnamon roll. He thinks about Ezra tracking a car he did not need to track, just because his mind does not know how to stop watching. He thinks about Nathan's voice in the bakery kitchen saying, very simply, just me. Okay, Teo says. One word, quiet and final, and carrying inside it the weight of everything it took to arrive at that single syllable. They go inside. 3 weeks later, the red envelope is still in the kitchen drawer. Teo has not updated the address. He has not needed to. This is the thing he turns over in his mind on a Wednesday morning in November while standing at the kitchen counter with his coffee, listening to the particular quality of noise coming from the living room, which is the combined sound of Amos at full conversational speed and a second voice, lower and patient, that asks short questions and then waits. Nathan comes on Wednesdays and Saturdays. These are Teo's terms, and Nathan has kept them without negotiation or complaint, which Teo had half expected him to push against and which, when he did not, quietly restructured something in the way Teo had been holding himself since the bakery. He does not call it trust. Not yet. He calls it evidence. Evidence gathered carefully, the way he gathers everything incrementally, without rushing the conclusion. In the living room, Amos is explaining his crane collection. He has made 11 of them in the 3 weeks since the bakery, and they are lined on the windowsill by size, and he is explaining each one with the thoroughness of a child who has found his subject and intends to be comprehensive. Nathan is sitting on the floor. Teo can see him from the kitchen doorway, 6 feet 3 inches of billionaire Mafia alpha, sitting cross-legged on Teo's living room rug, holding crane number 7, listening to Amos describe the specific difficulties of the left wing, with the full, unhurried attention of someone who is not waiting for the conversation to be over. Ezra is next to Nathan, not close. Ezra does not move close quickly, but 3 feet away, with his book open in his lap and his eyes moving between the page and Nathan with the regular, calibrated monitoring of a child who is still taking the measure of something and has not yet finished. This is progress. Last Wednesday, Ezra sat in the doorway. The Wednesday before that, he sat in the hall. Renata was right. She told Teo 2 weeks ago on the phone in her direct way, the man is not performing. I ran him through 4 conversations and he is not performing. That does not mean you trust him with everything, but it means you can trust him with this. With Wednesday mornings. With crane number 7 and Amos's running commentary and Ezra's slow, watchful approach. The business with the monitored number had resolved the way these things resolve when you have Zeke Lancel working it, efficiently and without Teo needing to know the specifics, which was itself part of the agreement, Nathan keeping the operational end of the Lancel machinery, entirely separate from the brownstone and the boys and the life on West 49th. Dorian had called Teo directly the week after to confirm it was handled and to say, in his particular measured way, we should have a conversation at some point. Not now, when you're ready. Teo had said okay, he had meant it. He finishes his coffee, he refills the mug, he looks at the kitchen drawer with the red envelope in it. He thinks about opening it, about taking out the address inside, the third one, the updated one, and crossing it out, about leaving the envelope empty for the first time in 3 years, about what it would mean to be a man who does not need a red envelope anymore, and whether he is that man yet, and whether he needs to decide that today. He does not open the drawer. Not because he is afraid, because he is precise, and precise men do not dismantle infrastructure until they are certain they will not need it again, but he stands in front of the drawer and he thinks about dismantling it. He thinks about it as a real option. He has not thought about it as a real option before. From the living room, Amos's voice rises in pitch, which means he has arrived at crane number 8, which is the one he considers his best work and introduces with appropriate ceremony. Nathan says something too low for Teo to hear. Amos laughs, full and clear and completely unguarded, the laugh of a child who is in a room where he feels entirely safe. Teo closes his eyes for 1 second. He just stands in the kitchen and listens to that laugh and lets it be what it is. Then Ezra appears in the kitchen doorway. He stands there with his book under his arm and looks at Teo with his calm, silver-dark eyes. "He remembered that I don't like the syrup on my pancakes," Ezra says. From last Wednesday, he remembered. Teo looks at his son. "I know." Ezra considers this. He looks back toward the living room, where Amos is now apparently demonstrating the fold technique for crane number 9 at full volume. Then he looks at Teo again. "I think," Ezra says, with the careful, deliberate weight of a 4-year-old making a considered determination, "that he's trying." Teo looks at Ezra for a long moment. At the serious face and the steady eyes, and the small, precise person who has been watching everything from doorways and hallways, and the back seat of cars, and the corner of bakery kitchens, taking the measure of this situation with the patience and the precision of someone who carries his father's whole way of being in a 4-year-old body. "Yeah," Teo says, "he is." Ezra nods once, then he turns and walks back to the living room and crosses the rug and sits down next to Nathan, not 3 feet away this time, beside him, close enough that their arms are almost touching. He opens his book and does not say anything. He just sits there close and turns his page. Nathan looks down at Ezra. He does not make a sound. He does not make it into anything. He just looks and then looks back at Amos and crane number 9, and his hand, steady, careful, the hand of a man who is very aware of every move he is making, comes to rest on the rug beside him, close to Ezra but not touching, an offer and not a demand. Ezra looks at the hand, he looks at his book, he turns another page. Then, without ceremony, without announcement, he leans slightly to the left until his shoulder is against Nathan's arm. Nathan goes completely still, and then slowly he exhales. The specific exhale of a man setting something down he has been carrying for 3 weeks, for 5 years, for longer than that. In the kitchen doorway, Teo watches. He thinks about a rainy Manhattan alley and a whispered please, and the exact calculation that sent him toward the one person he had spent 5 years avoiding, and how the calculation had been right for the wrong reason. He had meant to use Nathan as a shield for 30 seconds, and instead had started something he could not have planned. He thinks about the difference between running and standing still, about the years of running, necessary and right and his to be proud of, and about this Wednesday morning, this kitchen, this particular quality of noise from the living room, and what it means that he is standing still in it without bracing for the ground to move. He looks at the drawer with the red envelope. Not today, but soon. He picks up his coffee and walks into the living room and sits in the chair by the window, and Amos immediately pivots to him with crane number 10 in both hands, and the city is outside the window doing its ordinary, indifferent, relentless thing. And in here the morning is warm and the cranes are on the windowsill, and a man, who once had nothing except his own hands and his own judgment, has built something that no single night and no single name and no 5 years of fear could take apart. It belongs to him, all of it, still. And for the first time, it is also, quietly, shared. If this story moved you, if Teo's courage, Amos's laugh, or the moment Ezra leaned and hit something real, drop a comment below and tell us which moment got you. Your words keep these stories going, and every comment helps someone else find this channel. If you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that reminds you what survival, love, and quiet strength actually look like. Share this with someone who needs it today. We will see you in the next one.